All right, Friends Who Ramble is back. It is week 15. We are doing a power rankings episode and I guess a little bit of a playoff preview as well. It is the first week of the playoff season. We're recording this just at the start of the second half of this Thursday night game. So we were talking about a pre-show. It's a rainy game right now. I mean, it looks like the rain has maybe slowed down a little bit. I know it stopped at halftime, but. Yeah, there are some implications here. I mean, I have Kittle going. He's pretty heavily invested in this game. He's got Stafford, he's got Kyron Williams, he's got Puka Nacua. Kyron Williams is getting a lot of touches, but he's not doing too much. And then between Stafford having like 30 yards at this moment, and Puka obviously can't have too many if that's the case. He's not getting too much production there. So there is some playoff implications here, and it would be very interesting to see what type of swing that could have if things kind of hold. But. Amaral is back, of course. It is a power ranking episode. It's just the two of us. No special third guest here at all. But yeah, we want to get into it. We want to do a power ranking. And I said to you, I think I want to do, of course, with the playoffs just starting, we want to at least look at those top six teams from a this season playoff perspective. But for the teams that are out of it, I mean, we obviously don't care too much about the consolation bracket or at least I don't know how you feel about it, but there is no cash prize at the end or anything like that. So who cares too much? But I think with those at least six teams, especially now that we have the draft lottery, which we will get to in a second, I think we want to look at that more from like a dynasty perspective, at least looking forward to 2025 at the very earliest. But Amaral, we do have you on, and like I did mention, the draft lottery, we had that drawing. I guess what was did I do it Tuesday? So we had the draft
Tuesday.
lottery
Yeah.
Tuesday. The balls were drawn Tuesday morning, and then the announcement was made in the afternoon. For the second year in a row, I believe, right? You dropped from, like I said on the show, I don't remember if you had the second or third best odds last year, but either way, 2 years in a row, you had top three odds, and you ended up with the fourth pick. What's your reaction to that? How are you feeling based off of that? I know you mentioned you had that Detroit Pistons draft luck. Of course, it's not ideal, but like I said, you also had uh, you know, Malik Neighbors fell into your lap, and I mean that ended up being a very good pick for you. So, are you feeling optimistic, or do you feel kind of like there's some sort of conspiracy against you? Or what's your reaction to it?
No, it's just the luck of the ping pong balls, man. It's just shitty luck. What can you do about it? Um, I'm good though. I mean, I think this draft kind of sucks anyway, to be honest. Like, it's not a good quarterback draft. It's not a good receiver draft. Running back's pretty strong, but I feel okay at four. Like you said last year, I got neighbors at four. I didn't like the pick at first when it was first drawn. I was pretty pissed about four last year, but as I got closer to the draft, I grew more comfortable with taking neighbors at four. And then by the time the pick came around to me, I was able to smash that pick, and I love it. So I feel okay. I think this is again, we'll as we get closer to the draft, we kind of figure out where these guys are going to start to land. I think it will feel a little bit stronger as a class, but as of right now, I don't really have much confidence in the rookie class, next year's rookie class as a whole.
Yeah, I agree, and yeah, I feel the same way with this quarterback class. I'd hate to be in a position where I would need a quarterback, and I think luckily for you, I don't feel like you do. Like, I mean, I think you're pretty good with where you're at with Baker Mayfield and Tua as well. And of course, there's always room to add a third, but I would hate to feel pressured to draft a quarterback in this draft. I'm just not sold on any of these guys, and honestly, maybe it's kind of a stupid analysis, but I am just a little skeptical because of how good this past quarterback class has been so far. Even Caleb Williams, who seems to really be bringing up the rear when it comes to the four starting rookies this season, he's still having a really good rookie year statistically, at least, by all accounts. So, the fact that he's like number four in the class just shows how deep this class goes. And there's, a couple more guys that are waiting to see as well. But yeah, I'm skeptical of just this many good quarterbacks all being drafted in a row. So I don't know. I don't like the quarterback class going in, and then also just kind of playing that numbers game. I just feel like something's going to give at some point. So I would not want to be in a position where I want to draft that. But yeah, I mean, I do find some of these position players intriguing, but yeah, I don't feel like there's enough guys that are worth like trying to trade up and climb up the board. and go after, which I feel like has been the case in recent years. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy that I'm not too or I'm not really invested at all in this draft class, and I do feel a little bit differently towards it. And I think that also just speaks to where my team's at. But yeah, I'd say let's just swing it right over to the power rankings now. Let me
I will say I'm open for business too. So let's anyone in the league, let's start talking now.
Yeah, and
Obviously,
exactly. I mean, I think the league, the trade market opens right back up February 1st. So, I always promote just start doing the talking now. I mean, nothing can change, right? I don't think that any waiver wire pickup is going to make too big of a difference here. You guys have picks, you guys have assets, different players that can be traded, young and old. So it's like start talking now and just have things ready. So when that window opens up, you can just get those deals going. I always feel like, especially early on in this league, people would wait until, that window would open up just to start talking. And, I just feel like that's not productive. So, you got time, you got things to figure out. So, all right, we'll swing it over. Share that. Here we go. All right. So clean slate. I believe I have all the updated logos so far. Um, where do you want to start? I mean, should we start with the non-playoff teams?
I say so. Yeah, let's keep it bottom up.
All right, so let's start with McMorrow. Well, I don't know, right? We want to view this through a dynasty standpoint. So, of course, with the draft lottery, we know that top six, it's going to be McMorrow, you, McMorrow, McMorrow. So he really has very limited talent on his roster. He's got a few good running backs. He's got like Josh Downs. He does not have a quarterback. So I guess it just comes down to how much do you value those picks? It's all hypothetical right now, but how do you think he's going to come out of it? I mean, does that put him above teams, or is he still comfortably the worst team just because there's really we got to see how that talent plays out. What do you think?
I wouldn't say comfortably the worst team. I think he could be better than Simcoe next year, just kind of depending on how this draft shakes out. Um, he's sort of like it's like 2021 OKC Thunder vibes. Like the team is like absolute dog shit,
Yeah,
but there's so many picks at his disposal that it's like it's probably going to turn around. And I know you've talked about some of the players that he has on his roster still. Like I'm a big Bucky Irving guy. Um, so I think like he does have some sort of guys that have like pillar potential or at least starter potential. So I think he could work his way out of this pretty quickly. Um,
that's the thing. I mean, and that's why I wanted to pull back when I started to put him down there as the worst team. I mean, I guess I kind of have to think about it for a second and figure out if there's anybody that I feel comfortable putting below him. But I do feel confident in McMorrow to come out of this with a pretty solid team. I just feel like in years past, right, we saw Fitz's team, which I don't think we ever got to see that really come to fruition. I think it was all in the dispersal draft before that. But then we also saw Pete, and Pete's team came out of it pretty good. But I think McMorrow has way more picks than anybody that we've seen. It's an overwhelming amount. So I think that he can still make good picks. I can't speak to the talent he's going to end up with, but I'm just talking about the actual draft position of these picks. He's going to have a lot of picks in good spots while also having a lot of picks that are disposable. So I think that he can go out, he can make moves, and then he can also continue to build through the draft as well, and build out like a pretty deep team. So, as long as he avoids overspending, which I do always, that's what I always criticize Pete for. I feel like he overspent just a bit too much. It was like a marginal thing where he's given, even if it's 1% more with each trade, that 1% adds up. So I think McMorrow needs to be a little bit careful of that. Just because you have a bunch of picks, don't go out and just spend all of them just for the sake of getting, the certain player that you want. But assuming that he is smart with those, I think that he has so many that he can get this done. So I don't know. Is there anybody that we think goes below that?
I don't think so, only because he does not have a quarterback. And like so he has the top three picks. So he's like, if he wants Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, like they're his. There's nobody that is going to be able to jump up if he's that committed to them. The thing is, we don't know like the landing spots. We don't know how good either of them are going to be. Total question marks. He doesn't have a quarterback on the roster right now. Simcoe has Josh Allen, so I think that alone puts him above McMorrow for the time being anyway.
Yeah, and honestly, if I could put myself in his shoes, I think that, I would look to build through this draft. Like, I mean, I think that there's enough good talent in the draft that as long as you can hold on to a few of these picks, and I think you should definitely think about holding on to all three of those top three. But get the guys now and then use like those 2026 picks. Try and find the guy that's going to be the 2026 tanking team. If I'm McMorrow, I don't want to do this for another year where we're absolute shit. I say go out and do that, even if it means you got to hold those picks until the deadline, and then find the team that wants to sell off at that point. And I'd say be a buyer at the deadline, even if the team's not really in a spot where you can make that push after that to be a playoff team. I say who cares? If I don't own my picks in 2026 because I'm starting to trade them away. I don't really care how good or bad I am. So I would just go out and try and poach that talent and try and figure out who the next tanking team is and use those future picks. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's too hypothetical. So I think we still have to. I think we can give him like a good title for his tier, but I think he still has to be at the very bottom. I just don't think that we can confidently, put him above anybody else until we actually see some of these picks play out, or whether it's via trade or making the pick or something. So I don't know. Do you have any ideas for what to call him? I don't think we need any certain theme here. We can just do it whatever we want. I don't know. You got any suggestions?
Fuck, no, not really.
We can
Sam
always come
Presti's
back to it.
here.
I mean, we can start to just fill out the rest of it and then maybe just go back through and then figure out these names.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
all right. I say we stay consistent. Let's just go bottom up. I say we work ourselves up. So who do you got next?
I think next has to be Simcoe. Simcoe's in a tough. He's in a more challenging spot than McMorrow, where like the team success wasn't there either, but he doesn't have nearly the picks or the pick capital that McMorrow has. Again, I think like the one saving grace here for him is that he has Josh Allen. He also has guys like Chris Olave, so there are some building blocks. Josh Allen's probably the best building block in the entire league. Um, so that's a good place to start for Simcoe.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's got the quarterbacks and he has a third quarterback where he can make a move, but I mean, he's got really nobody on his bench like beyond that. So I mean, he has a lot to fill out and he doesn't have running backs either. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. He's got Patrick Taylor, he's got Sincere McCormick. Those are two waiver wire darlings right now. Even though, Garendo ended up playing this week, but he doesn't have like a starting running back. I mean, maybe Braylon Allen, but Breece Hall is the starter until, said otherwise. He's just getting hurt right now, but he doesn't have a starting caliber running back on his team, and he doesn't have the picks to get those. He doesn't even have a 2025 pick right now. So, I mean, I think he needs to try and trade one of those quarterbacks and get creative, but right now he's going to need a little bit of luck. So it's going to take some hard work and a little bit of luck to really fill out the rest of that roster. And I think that he can do it. He just needs to play his cards right, and we need to see some things grow. But yeah, he does have some really good building blocks. I mean, beyond the quarterback, just like McConkey's been unbelievable. Brock Bowers has been like, I mean, historic, especially as a rookie tight end. So he has those pieces. But yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of gaps to fill, and like you said, he doesn't have the same, treasure chest that, a guy like McMorrow has. So I do think that he needs to be that 10th. Do you have anybody else in that tier with him?
Um, not re not really. I mean, like I think things are really slipping for Big Brain. Um, but I don't know if it's appropriate necessarily to have them on the right tier. I think they're kind of in they have equally like four teams, I think, but I don't know if they're again necessarily in that same tier. I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, I'll suggest so if we move up to this next tier, I think that there are two teams that I would put in it. I would put Big Brain and I would put the Vibers.
Is this the hell tier?
I think this is maybe not hell. I would say at least, I mean, like quickly fading. I think quickly.
Quickly
I mean,
fading.
we,
Yeah.
we we can maybe come up with a better name than that, but I think that's the vibe that I have with both of these teams, where it's just Big Brain. years too late. I think that they should have just been proactive, and that doesn't mean that you have to do a full tear down and rebuild or anything, but I think that they're just way too late. And they I don't know if they felt like we were just like fucking around with them or something, but we said the warning signs were always there. I mean, they were just so running back heavy, they were so veteran heavy, and they just haven't made the moves that they needed to make to really get out in front of that. And now they're kind of seeing how what the payoff of what we warned them was. And McCaffrey went back to getting hurt. Chubb, he's come back, but he's not, the Nick Chubb that we saw. Maybe he can get back to that next year. But I mean, they do have some picks, so I'm going to put them above the Vibers. But yeah, I just feel like between Big Brain and not having enough of a youth movement, and they have picks, but not a ton to really get excited about. But then the Vibers, they just they went from being the team that had so much depth to all of a sudden they have like barely a scary starting lineup at all. So yeah, I think that these are just two teams that were in such great spots like 2 years ago, and now they just don't have it. And I just feel like compared to everybody else, maybe in a vacuum their teams are okay, but I think just compared to everybody else in the league, they're just kind of stuck in the middle.
I think that's fair. Yeah, something like fading. I think that makes a lot of sense for that tier name.
Yeah, let's just do yeah, we'll just keep it at that. And I mean, so we did kind of describe that as hell. Do we think that like is that worthy of being below these two teams? Because at least these other two teams, I mean, maybe not. I mean, I guess if we wanted to play that game, then I don't know if Simcoe could go above him. I feel like McMorrow, he at least has optimism. Yeah, I guess maybe we should keep it at that. But yeah, I think that's what we need to do. I think we need to at least give, these two teams, Simcoe with having the quarterbacks and some, youth to get excited about, and then McMorrow having all those picks. I think they just need more like friendlier tier names, but I think we can still, have some integrity and keep them below these teams that are, you know, strongly outperforming them at least points wise. So, all right. I think we move on to another tier, right? So we have two more. What teams am I missing? Okay, we got
Me
the
and the
Oh yeah,
Suns.
your team, and then we got the Suns.
Yeah.
Um, I'd put the Suns in a tier of their own. I'd put them next. I I I don't know. Maybe you two in a tier together. Like where would you put yourself?
I would have us in the same tier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let me just
What do you think? You before or you after?
1 second. Let me just pull this roster back up here.
I'm gonna take a look myself. I need to get eyeballs on it and really. I mean, okay, so he's gonna have Dak coming back next year. I mean, I guess you gotta assume Rashee Rice will be back. We'll see how, everything goes with this court case. But when we're looking at that bench, I mean, it's just like, I mean, there's nobody startable here. Maybe ETN. I mean, but he's starting to fall out of that category. Everybody else is not like somebody that you can feel comfortable starting. If you're starting him even on a bye week, your team's probably in trouble. I mean, he had Jonnu Smith breakout as the tight end, so at least he's able to fill out his starting roster like that. But we'll see what the future holds for Keenan Allen. And then he's got it's the same thing, right? Any given Sunday at full strength, this starting lineup can be very dangerous. And we saw the run that they put together to end the season that, put a bit of a scare into my team and I think into Mikey's team as well. But, at the end of the day, they just weren't able to put it all together over a full season because that's when injuries kick in and bye weeks kick in. And when you have zero depth at all, it's just not going to work out for your team. You're going to put up too many stinky weeks. We had that loss to McMorrow where they scored 50 points. And I think that really came back to bite them in the ass. If they put up well, I guess we kind of ran away with it. But if they put up, 30, 40 more points and just put up a normal midweek where it's like 90, 100 points, all of a sudden that changes things going into that final week. I mean, maybe it still wouldn't have been enough to catch us, but, at least it changes things up. But yeah, I think this team's in trouble, right? We saw Dak get hurt and all of a sudden Cooper Rush has to start and he's not been, too reliable. I mean, he's been pretty brutal in a couple of these games, including putting up negative points in his first start. So, I think I got to put them below you. I mean, I think that you have a little bit more to get excited about. You have two good quarterbacks yourself. But I mean, I just feel like your top end talent's a little bit better from a dynasty perspective. I mean, how do you feel about that?
Mm, I honestly think I'd have the Suns a little ahead of me. As far as like building blocks go, like they have the two serviceable quarterbacks at least. We've seen quarterback one production out of Goff and Dak in the past. I think Keenan Allen's going to be completely cooked, but Rashee Rice, like, even if he gets suspended, it'll probably be like, what, 6 games? Like, he's still going to be a factor. He's still going to be Mahomes' favorite target. And then he has JSN and Brian Thomas, and then HN and Gibbs. So I think there are, so like that core five there, um, in terms of wide receivers and running backs of Brian Thomas, JSN, Rashee Rice, Gibbs, and HN. I don't think I can match that at this point.
I don't know. I mean, so I really like your quarterbacks, and we'll see how things shake out. I mean, everybody thought that the Cowboys were going to be huge buyers in the running back market this last offseason, and they weren't. And then I think a lot of people are expecting them to, be looking at that in the draft and maybe, make a move for Ginty or something. But I don't know. I mean, Rico Dowdle has completely broken out. I mean, Chase Brown has been unbelievable since becoming the full-time starter. Tyrone Tracy pretty much for the same part as well. You have three good running backs. Of course, maybe they're not HN and Gibbs and quite like that level or anything, but I mean, you have your running backs, you have a couple good receivers. Of course, you have Malik Neighbors, you're going to have Ayuk coming back. But I mean, you have a good team and you have a first rounder and you have Laporta and you have Kraft. You have a pretty good team. I mean, I think that your roster fills out and maybe they need a little bit more time to catch up to a team like theirs this year compared to, when you're comparing your teams this year with the scoring, but I don't know. You have a pretty good roster. I feel like you have a startable, lineup here, and you have a first rounder to add, which they don't. I don't know. I mean, I think it's at least close. So I mean, if you yourself are saying that you think that they're a little bit above, then I'll go with you for that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that these are two pretty comparable teams, and I think that you're right up there with them. But
Yeah,
I
like
don't know.
I mean, I think we belong in the same tier, like for sure.
Yeah.
I think it is worth a debate on who should be first. I would just lean them again, just due to that top end talent. That core five is just, I think that is like a special core five, especially when you're talking about dynasty. All those guys are still on their rookie contracts, so I think that's a good place to start for the Suns. I definitely have more to work with in terms of picks, especially this year with the first rounder, but um, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel fully comfortable with the running backs. Like Chase Brown, I would imagine this is probably his job next year. Like he's been fucking balling, so I would hope it's his job next year. Dowdle, I'm less optimistic about moving forward. I just think like Jerry Jones is going to be too tempted to take Ashton Genty or something like that, and he's not going to have the starting job next year. Um, we'll see. Again, like Tyrone Tracy, he's a guy that like kind of similar career arc to Antonio Gibson, right? Like the guy kind of, receiver turned running back, has this awesome first year burst onto the scene and then kind of turns to shit. So we'll see if that happens with Tracy. I think he's a good player. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think it's within his range of outcomes.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. And yeah, I mean it is funny too because and I guess it's maybe that's the reason why he converted to running back, but maybe in the recent weeks he's been used a little bit, but for the most part they really haven't used him as a receiver too much. And it's been like kind of disappointing. Sometimes you're looking at like props or something, you think, what, you can't get three catches? And but I think that they are starting to use them a little bit more. But I mean, yeah, I mean, at least this year, I mean, they've been great. So, like you said, we'll see. I do feel like Chase Brown, he's got to be safe. I mean, he's just been so good, and they've been leaning on him. He's been getting insane usage. But yeah, we'll see with Dowdle. I feel like he is the one that's maybe the most concerning when it comes to trying to predict future usage. But all right. Um, I guess we're moving on to the playoff teams now. So I don't know. I didn't check the results quite yet. I don't know if you voted in the poll today. I don't know who your pick was to win it all. But I mean, we're going to start with the sixth team, and I guess we kind of have a little peek into things right now with the start of this game. But I don't think it's going to necessarily decide anything too early. But where do you want to get started when it comes to the sixth team going into the start of the playoffs?
Sixth team, um, I think it's still Mikey. Um, I just don't think he's quite at that level with some of you other guys here as in terms of contenders go. I feel bad because I always feel like I'm like shitting on Mikey's team and always doubting it. Like, but he's like Jerry Jeudy has been like enormous for him. I don't think anyone would have predicted that going in. Like honestly, year five for Jerry Jeudy, I thought he was just kind of an average player, but they traded Cooper, made the switch to, Deshaun Watson got hurt. Jameis comes in and Judy's this like unstoppable player. It's like him and Jamar Chase like putting up the most yards or whatever over the last 5 weeks, whatever it is. So, um, Judy's I think Judy's kind of been a nice presence for him in that lineup, but overall, I don't feel great about it. Like Pitts fucking sucks. Caleb Williams is super hit or miss. Um, The receivers are really good. I do like his receiver core a lot. Flowers, T. Higgins, Judy, obviously Jefferson. Najee and Rashad White are like kind of similar guys. They're like both kind of plodding, not the most effective runners in the world, but volume is key in fantasy. And like, Mikey could win this week because it looks like Bucky Irving's going to be out. So that should be a big workload day um, for Rashad White. But just in terms of overall top end talent, I think Mikey's the clear 6 out of 6 in the playoff field.
Yeah, yeah, I think on paper I have to agree. Um, Yeah, and I agree with what you said too. I think that he definitely can win this week. I feel like he kind of does have a few matchups swinging in his favor. I think Judy Mill will be, maybe tough going against Kansas City. I saw some stats that suggest he's going to be in for a pretty rough week, and we'll see. That could be a pretty humbling game for Jameis as well. That could be a multi-turnover game, which I mean, at the same time, that could also mean it's a multi-touchdown game for him. So, throwing a few touchdowns has never stopped him from putting up big numbers, but. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm kind of struggling on where to rank him just because I do feel like he could pull off the upset here, but at the same time, I think just, all things considered, I think we almost got to look at it as if we know nothing from tonight's game so far. But yeah, I do think that they are kind of the sixth. I think, yeah, like we said, they can win this week, but I just have a hard time seeing them string together 3 straight weeks of being, one of the best teams. So, I don't know. Do you have anybody in that tier with them, or do you think that it goes up to the next?
I think it goes up to the next just barely. And I think the next team in line is two pins.
I was about to say the same thing. I mean, I was thinking, do we give them like a pass because they have the bye so they at least make it into the top four? But I think that doesn't matter. I mean, I just think that, even though they're locked in at the top four, they're going into that. It just feels like they're at a pretty severe disadvantage. Just that team is so thin. It feels like they're kind of limping to things. I mean, Cooper Kupp has 0 points right now. Jaden Reed is coming off of like, just a horrible stretch when it comes to usage rate. Taysom Hill was such a key contributor for them, and he's out now. And he's relying on guys that just like haven't been, too reliable. I mean, Jalen Warren is in that tier. Tajay like Spears has kind of been the same thing where, they came in, everybody thought that they were going to be the guys to sneak up and take over these backfields, and they just haven't really been able to do that. And it's a tough looking lineup. I mean, it almost feels like they're going to go as far as Jamar Chase is going to be able to take them, but I don't know if that's going to be enough when we get to the top four and it's going to be, three really good teams that they could be going up against. So, even with the bye, I feel like I got to rank them outside of the top four. So I'm with you there. I think that they are, in that fifth spot. So you think that they're in their own tier?
Just barely, yeah. And I think the difference really is Chase. Like I think he's just that good. Like that. Or he's been on, he's on pace to win the Triple Crown right now as a
Yeah.
receiver. Um, yeah, so I think Chase is the difference. It also kind of annoys me that Chase is in the flex. Like, can we please stop disrespecting him and put him into a receiver spot? I
I agree with that.
don't
Sometimes you got to just, treat it like it's real life and you got to try and appease your guys. So, I think that that's just bad vibes that they carry. And, that's why, maybe they're on their way out. But,
and also, I mean, like Kamara, like, are we sure this workload's going to be sustainable? Like this,
especially with Jake Haener taking over.
I know, and like New Orleans sucks. Like, do we want to run this guy into the ground, or do we like want to see what we have in Kendre Miller?
Yeah, and I
Uh,
mean, I think Miller White he scored a touchdown last week, so
yeah.
it looks like they're maybe starting to turn over that new leaf with him, with the new coach because it didn't seem like
Oh, Dennis Allen fucking hated Kendre Miller.
oh, he like despised him. So, I think that, these kind of new beginnings and now him getting a touchdown, it does make you think that maybe they're going to try and, look ahead and see what they have because I feel like there's always, even though they gave him a contract extension, I feel like there's always outs with these running backs. So, they'll be able to find their way out. But all right. Next team. So we got four left. We got Pete Wallace, the Zits, and the Strokers. Um, I don't know. Where do you feel
Okay.
like I'm gonna be honest. I mean, maybe I gotta, knock on wood here, but even if you want to put us in the same tier, I think going into this week, and I was projected more at the start, I do feel like I'm the team that is I'm the hotter team. So I mean, I gotta put Wallace at 4 going into this. I don't know if you agree or disagree.
I do agree, especially with it doesn't look like he's going to have Kenneth Walker or Brees Hall. Uh, Pacheco just doesn't really look like, or hasn't looked like the same player here these first 2 weeks back. CJ Stroud, like major sophomore slump, he hasn't really done much of anything this year. Bo Nix has been kind of his savior throughout the year. Bo Nix putting up QB1 numbers where Stroud's like a mid to back end quarterback too this year. So I mean, anything's possible when you have guys like Derrick Henry, Nico Collins, and Tyreek Hill. Because Tyreek's starting to kind of catch fire here down the stretch, but I just I don't love his options if both Walker and Hall are going to be ruled out. Like James Cook, I guess, is a fine play. But then like maybe Waddle or Calvin Ridley. So he does have more depth than a lot of teams would. Like if you were most teams, I think would have like very minimal chance of replacing Kenneth Walker and Brees Hall, but I think there is at least the chance that he can pull some guys off his bench and get pretty comparable production compared to what those guys will be projected to get him. But I think I think you're slightly above him, but I think the same tier is probably fine. But I think you're slightly above.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that our matchup right now is pretty much a toss-up, even dealing with these injuries. But yeah, I mean, he's just taken, big blows. I mean, he's had a few big injuries this season. He's had to deal with that, so that there has been some adversity there. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like I'm one of the hottest teams, even if it's not necessarily putting up insane scoring numbers, right? I'm not putting up the huge weeks like the Zits or like Pete's team or anything like that. But my team since week 4 has just been unbelievably consistent. I think I put up 109 or more points since week 4 all the way through the end of the season. So I just been chipping away, and I was so low at the start, and people were hitting me up thinking that I was going to be trading off my players. But I saw it through because it was really on me, and I've talked about it a million times. I honestly should have been 3-0 through those weeks, but I completely took myself out of those matchups, and in a sense, I did pay the price for it. I mean, I guess I ended up, in the same position, right? I'm in the same matchup that I would have been in round one, regardless if it was me or Wallace, or actually no, because that would have his points are a little bit higher. But I mean, I ended up almost catching him. If I had, it would have taken a miracle week, and he did give the bad week that I sort of needed, but I almost caught him in this points four race, and I almost caught him in that tiebreaker. So I mean, I put a little bit of a scare into him. I just feel like I definitely have to be above him. I think same tier is fair though, because I think it's still a bit of a toss up. But yeah, I think that objectively speaking, you're gonna be feeling a little more confident heading into this matchup as is if you're me over Wallace. But yeah, I'll keep us in the same tier. I don't think I don't know if I can go quite above them. So we got these two teams left. Is this same tier? Do you have one over the other tier wise, or do you think they're both in the same tier?
Um, I think I I think it's let's see. I think it's same tier. I think it's same tier, but Pete's two, and Bowman's one, I would say. But I think same tier is fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't really know if there's anything too deep into it. I mean, it's Bowen, he's the reigning champ. Saquon Barkley just being on your roster automatically gives you an advantage over anybody, but he's just got a really good team. And he made some, he gets aggressive and he makes his moves, and it seems like it always seems to pay off. It almost seems like he's just going to get there, no matter what. And that's what he's been able to do. So there's that, and then I just feel like the vision's really paid off with Pete. I mean, he's here now. He's heading into it, and he's got, I think, on paper, the best starting lineup in the league. And obviously things are looking a little rough at the start of this game. Puka Nacua did just have a massive catch, but I think it's just he's at an advantage where he's just put together such a good team that he can't lose. I think that he's the favorite to win this thing, and maybe I got to give the edge just to Bone because he's got the experience and he's been there. But I mean, personally, I have him ranked, as the highest team, so I just feel like this is kind of his to lose, and it's really up to him. But I don't know. Do you got anything to add when it comes to these two?
Not really. I mean, just the way these backs are like Saquon's obviously been unbelievable all year. Montgomery's as steady as it gets, but like this Josh Jacobs has been pretty steady this year too, but just kind of this ascension recently where he's had a couple 3 touchdown games. He's just
Yeah,
on
it
a
was like the
freaking tear.
yards were always there, and then the touchdowns finally started showing up, and it got, absolutely nuts.
Yeah. So he's they're both in good spots, I would say, roster wise. But again, I think Bowen's kind of in that uh, slightly better than Pete. I think, like you said, talent wise, on paper, maybe Pete roster is better. But if you're factoring in matchups and stuff this week, um, I think it probably
And you got to give
slightly.
Bowen the advantage, even though we didn't give that same benefit to two pins. Bowen is, already in the next round, and it's looking like Pete's going to be in a bit of a dogfight, at least with the start of this week. So, yeah, I think that it's, maybe on paper Pete gets the nod, but knowing what we know already, and with Bowen having that first round bye, I think that kind of serves as the tiebreaker. So I think that's the two that we're going to put it in. But I mean,
I
what do we
think
want to call them? Just like the favorites?
I would say the favorites is fine. Yeah.
Oh wait, I have my caps locked on. Jesus Christ! All right. Now let's get to the second tier. So it's me and Wallace. Um,
Contenders.
yeah, I think contenders is fair. So we got two more playoff teams. I mean, is there a pretenders tier? Is there a fraud tier? Um, I feel like both of those could work.
Uh, they could both work.
I think
Uh,
two pins is more of the
Pitt.
fraud, but I think Mikey's the pretender.
Yeah. Two pins is like the 2021 Titans. Like they have the bye, but like, okay,
I
are
like
you
that.
afraid of the Tennessee Titans? So it's
I
like
like
the
that.
2021 Titans. There we go.
All right, and then so what does that make Mikey? Can you think of any? You got any examples like that? I'm trying to think. Just like I'm trying to think of any teams that have made it recently where it's like, yeah, I guess they are like the hot team, but um, I don't know. Or is he just a pretender? Do we think pretender is all that we need?
I think so. Nothing's like glaring right now.
Okay. Now we got. I don't know. I mean, I feel like maybe something with like the because you guys both have good cores. You guys have both. I don't know. Exciting cores. Because now we're getting into more. I guess like more rebuild and dynasty minded verbiage. So it's like we don't have to worry too much about contending, pretending, or anything like that. I mean, what do you think? This is your tier.
Uh, my initial thought was like ascending, but I don't really think that's appropriate for Suns. I wouldn't say they're necessarily ascending. I think we probably should play off the cores for the team. So I've like got exciting cores or something like that is
Yeah.
uh that's fine with me. When you said exciting cores though, I just immediately think of the exciting white shirt with the Cooper DeJean and Blankenship.
All right. Now we got Simcoe. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, let's think back to what we were saying about him because it is he has exciting players, but he's just very limited in what he can do.
Uh, Before we name this one, can we center that exciting chorus? That is,
I'm trying to figure out because I don't know. Hold on.
I
Hold
don't know what happened to it. It's only one out of line.
on. Hold on. Okay.
Cool.
I don't know what the hell that was. Um, all right. I mean, it's kind of like I'm thinking like handcuffed or something like that. Like he's just right because like he has those pieces, and it's like yes, like you have the core that you need to build around, but then what can you really use to build around? Does he even have picks? I'm not even sure if he does.
Yes, I mean he doesn't have the first this year. He has some picks though, I think.
Okay, he's got 2026 thirds, and then he has a 27 first, second, and then a bunch of thirds. But
Oh,
that's
fuck.
really,
I
I
thought he
mean,
had.
his draft capital is mostly 26 and 27 thirds.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, that's what, 6 out of his 8 picks
Yeah,
are thirds.
yeah, and none of them are even this year.
He might be like the team that we're watching on Amazon right now. The Rams. Well, not so much the Rams now, I guess, but like that team that has kind of this just okay roster with no draft capital. It's probably a better example than the Rams, but um,
Well, I kind of associate that with like cap hell.
yeah.
And obviously, we don't have we're not working with a salary cap here, but I feel like that's kind of what he's in. Like he's just like, yeah, he has that team, but he's so limited to like the types of moves. I mean, I don't know. Is he in a hell tier? I don't know. I feel like that's maybe. I don't know if he deserves the hell title
I
because he
think
has moves. I mean, I don't know. It's just
hell alone is a little strong.
yeah. I don't know. What should we go to McMorrow and then maybe come back to Simcoe? I feel like Simcoe is going to be the toughest one.
Simcoe is the toughest one. McMorrow, I think, is like kind of. I think it's the Sam Presti tier. He's just sitting on this
I like
fucking
that.
mountain of picks.
I like that. Sam Presti for sure. All right. Now I'm trying to think. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any examples that jump off the page to me when it comes to Simcoe.
Let's see, Simcoe. What do we got?
I mean, is the Rams, is that just is that what he is? Especially, like the Rams that they have Stafford, they have the receivers, they have Kyron Williams, they have this like exciting front seven, but here they are, they're 7-6, and they're in a dogfight, in a divisional dogfight on Thursday. Post Super Bowl Rams or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, or like the Saints. The Saints are always like fucked against the cap for like 5 years
Yeah,
now.
I do kind of like
Um,
that. Hmm. There is a big difference though, because I mean, I'd much rather be the Rams than the Saints, so I feel like we gotta be smart about this. Which side do you have him on? Because I feel like they're two sides of the same coin, but one's good and one's bad.
uh, I would say I would say
I think he
Rams.
has competitive upside, so I think
I
we
do
go
too,
Rams.
and that's why I say Rams. Like he has the 3 quarterbacks. Like if he's able to like you know I don't know move one of these quarterbacks and with McMorrow, if McMorrow likes one of these quarterbacks and gets into the draft this year, or if he trades one of these quarterbacks for a proven young running back, something like that, his team could turn around pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
go. I'll go LA Rams.
yeah, because I mean the 3 quarterbacks plus Bowers, McConkey, Odunze, like I would have to imagine Keenan Allen's not in Chicago next year,
Yeah, you
and
would think so.
Odunze is just able to take that leap. I'm a Leggett fan too. So I think he's got some pieces. And Olave too. I keep forgetting about Olave.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just going to get creative. I think he just absolutely has to trade one of these quarterbacks. He has to make sure that he gets a proper return. And I think he kind of needs to use that to find some running backs. I just don't see how else he can find running backs. So, yeah, I think he needs to just break it down a little bit like that. I think he's got some good options with all three quarterbacks, whoever he decides to trade. But yeah, and regardless, I think that moving forward, he will have at least competitive upside with this core, just because I expect them to continue to grow. But Um, all right. That is it. I mean, that's all 12 teams. We got 8 tiers here, and I think that's pretty good. I mean, I think it's a pretty fair assessment. I feel like we got all of our thoughts. So, you got anything else to add to this?
No, I think that's it.
Who is your, I didn't check the poll. Who is your pick to win it all?
I did not vote, but I I'm gonna say Bowen. I'm gonna say Bowen pulls off the repeat, but I have like this like sneaky feeling that you're gonna end up on top here. I really do. Just I think you have the ability to where you're able to kind of play matchups here. Like you've got some nice pieces that are on your bench this week, guys like Thielen, Devontae Smith, who can produce. So you have the luxury of being able to play matchups here down the stretch, which I think is going to work in your favor.
I mean, even this week has been tough because there are a few matchups I want to play. I mean, I think that Pollard and Levis actually could have decent matchups, especially against this Bengals defense. But then, I'm reading that it's going to be a little bit windy, and then Levis also dealing with that AC joint. It could be, a tough passing day for him. And then, with Pollard just resting up his foot, who knows if Spears is going to get a little bit more involvement. But yeah, Thielen was a guy that I really was looking at and considered starting. And, obviously it hurts to not start a guy like Devontae Smith. But I mean, I think that I have some good matchups. I like the way it's playing, but yeah, I mean, I feel good about my team. I just feel like I can put up consistent points. I think that I still kind of lack that insane upside. Of course, I'm coming off of a big week from last week, but I don't have like the same players. But it is good to get guys like Mixon back, coming off of a bye, Brian Robinson coming off of a bye, and I think it's a real challenge and to see, because especially when it comes to my team and there's also Pete's team where we built our teams very differently, where he's going all in on that starting lineup, and I wanted to build it more with depth. And I said I didn't want to lose to the bye weeks. I didn't want to lose to injuries. And I've lost Stephon Diggs. I was really banking on Jonathan Brooks being something this year, and of course Chuba was able to step up, but I lost him as well. And I've still been able to continue going. Michael Pittman. He didn't go on IR at all, but he's basically been on it for this whole season dealing with that back thing. And, stuff like that hasn't killed me. Here I am. I mean, I'm in the top six. If I wasn't brain dead in the first 3 weeks, I think I could have been much higher than that. But yeah, I feel good about my team. So, I want to get the monkey off my back and finally get my first playoff win in my tenure in this league. And then, we'll see where it goes from that. I mean, if I do advance to the next round, then I'm guaranteed to be facing Bowen since I would be the lowest seed. So it's gonna be a tough path, but I'm ready for it. I feel good. This is where I wanted to be when I started this season. So I gotta pick myself as well. So I do I appreciate that as the dark horse. I wish that there was some way that we could get accurate betting odds or something at the beginning of the playoffs. But maybe I'll work on some sort of algorithm for that next year, and then we can start taking some action. But all right. I'll try and get this out as soon as possible. I think I'll tweet the graphic out soon enough. But Amaral, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Let me stop sharing my screen, and yeah, I'll tweet that out soon, or I'll post that in the league soon, I should say. And yeah, we'll see. Good luck to all the teams, and yeah, I'm looking forward to when that market finally opens. We're less than 2 months away from that. So, all right, we will see you next week. Where I'm going to try and do an episode every round of these playoffs.